Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Day number 24, cross-examination. You may proceed.
May it please the court. Morning, Mr. Murdaugh.
Good morning, Mr. Waters.
All right, let's see if we can move forward with this a little bit. See if we can go back to some things we may be able to agree on.
All right, sir.
All right. First thing is that the money you were stealing, in addition to your income and the money you were borrowing, was not just to pay for drugs. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
All right. And would you agree that your stealing, in addition to the money you were borrowing, increased over the years as we moved towards June of 2021?
Repeat that, please, sir.
Sure. Would you agree that your stealing increased over the years as we move towards June of 2021?
Yes, sir.
All right. And would you admit that your stealing increased in particular after the boat wreck?
No, sir. I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
I think I continued to do it, but I don't. As I sit here today, I don't think I took more money that I should not have taken after the boat wreck than I did before the boat wreck.
Okay.
But again, those documents speak for themselves, Mr. Waters, and if that's the case, then that's the case. But as we sit here, I think that I probably wrongly took from clients and people that trusted me as much money before that boat wreck as after.
All right. And I'm just trying to get through this so we don't get bogged down like we did yesterday. All right.
I understand.
All right. So you wouldn't agree with me that in 2019 alone you stole about $3.7 million?
No, I think that's correct.
All right. And would you agree with me though that figure in 2019 was generally higher than any other year that you've been stealing since 2011?
In any year, sure, I'd agree with that.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about overall, the whole cycle. But
All right.
yeah, I would agree that in 2019, I stole more money than any other year.
Would you agree with me that from 2015 on, your legitimate income, while still very strong, was diminishing as a general matter?
Well, I think whatever my income is speaks for itself, but as a general rule, a plaintiff's lawyer doing what we do, income ebbs and flows. You have some really good years, you have some really lean years, and no, I think I had some good years. Maybe not the $4 and $5 million years, but I think I had some $2 and $3 million years in there, and my caseload was such that, I had one of the things I was working on that Monday was one of the biggest cases that I've ever been involved in.
Talking about the Dominion case, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And so, I think it was cyclical. So I don't, without looking at the record specifically, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay, so you don't remember then?
No, I do remember. I don't think I agree with that. But again, those records will speak for themselves.
Okay. All right, so would you agree with me that in 2014, your reported income was over $1 million?
Objection relevant.
The objection's overruled.
Reported income, like tax-wise, or reported?
Yeah.
I assume you have a document that says that, and if you're reading that from a document, I don't dispute it.
I mean, I'm happy to show it to you if you'd like to see
I
it.
trust you, Mr. Waters. So,
All right, I appreciate that. All right, 2015, would you agree that your reported income was over $2 million?
again, I don't dispute that.
All right. 2016, reported income $900,000.
Okay,
2017, reported income $218,000.
okay,
2018, reported income of $749,000, roughly.
okay.
And 2019, reported income of $655,000.
Okay, and see, I mean, to me, that demonstrates exactly what I'm talking about, how it goes up and down.
And would you agree with me that though, during those periods of time where you were making that kind of money, you continued to steal, and I think you've already said that your stealing increased as we move through those years, as a general matter?
Absolutely. I don't dispute, and I have never disputed since I was confronted on Labor Day weekend
Right.
that I took money from my clients.
We've gone through that, and I
Well,
think
but you
we
keep
agree with
asking
that.
me
I'm
about
asking
that.
you if your income.
You can finish your answer.
So the point is I have never, since being confronted that day, my brother and my partner came to talk to me, that I have stolen money that did not belong to me, that I misled people to do it, people that I cared about, still care about, a lot of them that I love and still love. And I misled them to do it, and I was wrong. I have never disputed that from day one.
We've been through that. All I'm trying to establish right now with you, Mr. Murdaugh, is as we move towards June of 2021, what your financial condition was like, okay? I agree, you've testified to that multiple times, all right? So, let me ask you this. During this time that your income was what we just went through, and you conceded that your stealing was increasing, were you also borrowing significant amount of money from Palmetto State Bank?
Yes, I'd always borrowed significant amount of money from Palmetto State Bank, or for the last, more than the last decade. So, yes, sir, I agree with that.
Yeah, but as we move to June of 2021, did you have $1 million line of credit with the bank that was pretty much maxed out? Yes or no? As we move to June of 2021.
So in June of 21,
Sure.
yes,
All right. And did you also have a $600,000 line of credit that was pretty much maxed out around that time?
I did.
All right. And did you also, over the years, repeatedly borrow six figures from your law partners?
Well, I borrowed money from a law partner,
Which one?
Johnny Parker.
Johnny Parker. Okay. And that was a fairly common occurrence over the years. It happened multiple times. Would you agree with that?
I agree that it happened multiple times.
All right. And you would agree also that you would sometimes use some of the stolen money to pay that back?
I won't dispute that. I don't know that that's the case. I know what I saw Mr. Bernie testify to in using that particular accounting method. I see that.
All right.
So I don't dispute that.
All right. And would you agree that you also, when you needed money, occasionally borrow as much as 5 and 6 figures from your father, Mr. Randolph?
I did.
All right. And would you also agree that over the years, particularly as we move to June of 2021, you would use stolen money to pay that back?
I don't dispute that. If that's what the records show.
All right. And you just mentioned here in the testimony of Carson Burney and the banker and all that, you would agree with me that as we move to June of 2021, at least in liquid funds, you were running out of money.
In liquid funds, is in money on hand or money that I could get?
Money that you could, liquid funds. You're a lawyer, you know what liquid means. Were you
Well,
running out of
I don't know what you mean by liquid, Mr. Waters, and so,
money you could readily access, assets that you could readily access to pay your ever-increasing debts.
no, sir, I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
I do not agree with that,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why.
All right.
So are we talking about June?
I'm talking about as we move to June.
Okay, but what time period are you talking
All
about?
right, let's talk about January to June.
Okay, January to June. January to June, you know, I could borrow money from my father. I could borrow money from Johnny Parker. I could go to the bank and borrow money. I had substantial equity in the Edisto house,
Okay.
as we've talked about.
Which was in Maggie's name, correct?
Well, it was in Maggie and my name.
All right.
So, you know, that definitely was in both of our names. Moselle was in Maggie's name. There was substantial equity in that could have been borrowed against. So under the terms as you defined liquid assets just now, money that I would have access to, I disagree with
Okay.
on that, for those reasons that I just said.
Can we at least agree that generally the way the compensation structure for legitimate money that you earned in your law firm, the vast majority of your compensation does not come except in one lump sum in December? Can we agree to that?
Right, we get a salary. We would receive a salary. I believe our salary was $125,000.
Right.
And then the income that was earned would be paid in the form of a bonus at the year end.
All right. And then would you agree with me that that is why you stole the Ferris fees in March of 2021? Because you were in desperate need of funds and you could not wait till December to access those funds.
I think there's probably a lot of reasons why I stole those funds, but I certainly would believe or don't dispute that that's one of the reasons.
And would you agree with me that the $792,000 that you stole of those Ferris funds, that you exhausted those within about 2 months?
I don't know the time period, but I know that I exhausted them.
Now, again, I'm trying to get through this quickly because there's a lot more to talk about, obviously. But we went through a number of questions yesterday about the various clients that you stole from, correct? You remember that? The back and forth we had yesterday, do you remember all that?
Sure I do.
Okay. All right, and so I'm going to try to shortchange this, but I think it's important that we at least say the names of the people that were involved. But let's just do this to see if we can.
To the comment, Your Honor, inappropriate.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor. The clients that we're talking about, these are all real people, yes or no?
They're all real people.
All right.
They're
And
all
these
good
clients-
people.
Okay.
They're all people that I care about, that I cared about then. And a lot of them are people that I love.
Okay.
And I did wrong by them.
Yes, you hurt the people that you love, I know. So,
Sustained.
these were all people, every single one of them, that you at least had a personal conversation with at some point during the course of your representation.
All of my
About the
clients?
representation.
Absolutely. I had multiple conversations with all of my clients.
And these were people, every single one of them, real people that you looked in the eye and convinced them that everything was right.
Your Honor, 403, repetitive, cumulative. We spent 2 hours doing this yesterday.
I'm just trying to shortchange it with the simple questions that applies to everybody, and then I'm moving on.
Proceed.
I would have had conversations with all of my clients, and some of the conversations would have been on the telephone. I would have had conversations where I might not be looking them in the eye. I would have had plenty of conversations where I did look them in the eye.
All right, every single one of them looked them in the eye at least once. Is that fair?
Sure.
Every single one of them, you looked them in the eye and developed their trust in you. Is that true?
Every client that I had, at some point, I looked them in the eye, and I believed that I had the trust of my clients. Whether that came from me looking them in the eye or not, I can't answer that, but I will agree with you that every single client, I looked them in the eye, and I believe that the people that I stole money from for all those years trusted me.
And I'm going to show you what's been previously admitted. It states 329, I believe it is, and 314. And I'm just going to ask you to peruse those spreadsheets really quickly. And once you have a chance to do that, let me know. I'll have one or two questions about that.
All right, so I'm sorry. What was your question?
I just asked you to look at them. Have you had a chance to review those documents?
I have.
All right. And would you agree with me that every single name on here are either clients that trusted you that you stole from, or instances in which you stole from your law partners who trusted you as well?
I agree with that.
All right, so we don't need to go through each one of these, correct? You agree with that?
Mr. Waters, like I've told you, I'll go through whatever you want to go through, but each one of those clients is just what we've already talked about. Good people, fine people, upstanding people. They trusted me. Every single one of them I did and I do still care about, and many of them I love and consider them close friends.
Like Barrett Boulware?
Absolutely. It's a perfect example.
And you stole from Barrett Boulware.
I did.
Do you recall a conversation that you had with Ronnie Crosby in which he told you that Barrett was desperate for money because he needed his wife to stay in a hotel near him while he was undergoing treatment for terminal cancer around the time that you stole from him?
Say, Your Honor.
Objections overruled.
I don't recall that conversation, but, you know, I knew Barrett was sick. You know, Barrett is a unique situation. I mean, Barrett is and was dear to me as a friend. But, I mean, Barrett and I had a long, long history. You know, I guess really, and I lied probably more by omission, lies by omission in stealing that money. But that's a perfect example. You keep asking about me having these conversations and looking people in the eye. I mean, that's a perfect example. I mean, when I stole that money, he was nowhere around. It was more based on lies by omission. And Barrett and I had such a history. These real estate deals that you're asking me about, Barrett was one of my good friends, and we had been in these real estate deals together. Barrett was just an interesting person. He was a shrimper. He was born and raised in Allendale County, and he moved down to the coast. And
Mr. Murdaugh.
as shrimping.
Mr. Murdaugh, I don't know that we need Barrett's entire life story.
No, but it's important
Let
to
me just
understand
ask
this
you
based on
this.
the question you asked.
I don't think his entire life story is responsive, Your Honor.
And I'm not intending to give his life story. I'm just telling you a little background.
Go
so
ahead,
you'll
tell us
understand
about
it.
your friend that you stole from. That's fine. Go ahead.
So Barrett started getting into real estate, and he was really good at it. And so I started getting involved with him in that. He could go out and find pieces of property that were really cheap, get them and sell them and make money. Well, we got in some of these deals, and we got in as Barrett and it was some other people. Well, when the recession hit, one of the reasons these land deals caused me trouble is because the people that I was in these deals with no longer could pay. Whereas I might have gone in and I was a 20% person, I'm now all of a sudden, either I have to default at the bank and affect credit, affect ability to borrow, or I have to pay 100%. And so that's what I did. I paid 100%. And so there were years where I was paying, instead of a fifth or a half, I'm paying the whole thing. And it equated to it equated to millions of dollars, which is one of the ways why I ended up with the Moselle property, because I had paid more than $1 million in monies for Barrett, and that was part of the deal in the trade in me purchasing Moselle.
So what you're telling me is you felt like you were entitled to steal from him?
No. You know what? I will tell you this, that, you know, when you're doing the things wrong that I was doing, you have all kind of ways of justifying it. And I'm not saying that makes it right by any means, because it's not. It's wrong. I've said that 100 times. But when I was doing it, and I was as addicted as I was, and the things I was doing, there's all kind of things that you know, to be able to look yourself in the mirror, you lie to yourself. And I guess self-justification for these bad things, you know, I guess is what I was doing. But, you know, Barrett had owed me so much money that when I took his money, I just didn't tell him. So it was a lie by omission.
All right. All these people on these two exhibits, these were real people that needed this money, is that correct?
I'm sure they did.
But it was more important to you that you stole their money on top of the 40% of legal fees that you were taking.
You actually asked and answered repetitive.
I've never asked that question.
I stole their money.
It was more important to you than their needs, is that correct?
Objection.
Objections overruled.
I don't remember sitting down and calculating, okay, is this more important? You know, one of the self-justifications that I talked about, Mr. Waters, is, and this is one of the things, again, I want to make it clear. I don't, as I sit here today, I do not believe that any of this justifications that I'm talking about made any of this okay, because I don't. I've owned up to all this money I stole. I've tried to since I was confronted, and I continue here today. But one of the justifications at the time when I was taking pills and doing the things I was doing was, I may ask a partner, okay, how much is this case worth? And if one of my partners, and I may not even give them all the real facts, okay? So if they said this case is worth $100,000, okay, and I go out and I get them $300,000, you know, that's one of the stupid little things. Okay, well, this isn't the same. And that's one of those justifications that I used in looking back on this that I don't know how I did. But so to sit down and say, did I evaluate that they needed the money more than I did? You know, I don't think I did that. I think I was selfish, and I think I just took the money.
Okay, I think I understand. I'd asked you a series of questions yesterday about at least relating one conversation you had with one of these clients. And I'm just going to ask you this one. Do you remember looking Tony Satterfield in the eye and lying to him?
I remember lying to Tony Satterfield, and I remember looking him in the eye on many occasions.
And lying to him?
Yeah.
Okay. Lying to his family?
I lied to his family. I don't know if I did it in person, but I know I had phone conversations with him where I lied to him.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the pills, if we can.
Okay?
And you've already testified, as has other people, that you were still able to function as a lawyer over the years despite the pills that you were using. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were able, of course, during this period of time to engage in these relatively complicated thefts that increased over the years that we've just talked about, despite the pill usage. Is that correct?
I was. I was.
All right. And you were also able to, during this time period, convince your staff that nothing was amiss with all of these exhibits, despite your pill usage.
I mean, most of those didn't require convincing my staff, but just so we're on the same page again, I acknowledge that I certainly allowed them to be misled. I certainly allowed them to do things that I shouldn't have done on my behalf, knowing that they trusted me.
How many pills were you using a day?
Depends on a number of items, most importantly, how strong the pill was.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, let's say start maybe in January of 2021 and move forward. Can you describe to the jury what your daily pill intake was like?
I think at that time, most of what I was purchasing was 30 milligram pills, instant release, oxycodone, that probably mixed in with some OxyContin, which is made of oxycodone. It's just time release. I would have been taking anywhere from 1,500 milligrams maybe to maybe 1,000 or maybe 1,000 milligrams or 1,200 milligrams on a day I didn't take as much or didn't have as much, up to, I mean, there are days, many days, a lot of days, most days were more than that, and many days would be, more than 2,000 milligrams a day.
And how many pills is that?
It depends on the strength.
Well, let's say it's the
Of the
30s
pill.
that you just mentioned.
If I took 30, if I had 30 milligram pills, you figure 100 pills would be 3,000 milligrams.
100?
100.
So you're taking 60 a day or something like that? I mean,
There were days where I took more than that. There were days I took less than that.
and how would you take them during the course of the day? I mean, how many are you taking at one time? How frequent in this time period, let's say January to June?
There's a point in time, and I'm not sure when it was, I think it was well before that, where, and you have to understand this. This is something that I can still remember the first time I ever took an OxyContin.
Mr. Murdaugh, can I ask you to answer my question, and I'll let you explain all you want. And my question was, how many were you taking a day during this time from January to June? Answer that first, please, and if you want to explain, I'm happy to let you do so.
I'm not positive, and here's why. It's because over the years, like as I was saying, the first OxyContin, one OxyContin literally made me sick. And that was when I was transitioning from hydrocodone to oxycodone. And it made me sick because it was a really, really, really strong one. And so, one OxyContin pill was like 10 hydrocodone pills. So, but anyway, as I took more and more, and over the years, it just, you build up a tolerance to pain pills. And so what might give me this energy, one of the reasons I became so addicted is, some people talk about pain pills and how they make them lethargic and, where they can't do anything and they feel. Opiates gave me energy. I mean, whatever I was doing, it made it more interesting. It made me want to do it longer. To go on a drive, it made driving. It just at the beginning, it made everything better. But I took so much just to keep. It got to a point where I was taking so much just to not backslide or go into withdrawals or have all those symptoms. And so it got to the point where I was taking the amounts that I came to be taking in the time period you're talking about, January to June. So it evolved over time. It wasn't like it just started then, Mr. Waters.
All right, can you just give me one example of a day during that time period? I mean,
Sure.
Did you start at 8 o'clock in the morning, or whatever time you got up, and take one, and then one every 30 minutes? I mean,
Well, no,
I've given you a chance to explain. So
It would
now
totally
be
depend.
specific.
It would totally depend on any number of circumstances. So starting a day, one of the main things that this would depend on was how late the day before I had taken pills and how many I had taken. And did I take them during the night? Did I wake up during the night and take them? So, let's just say that it had been a while since I took any, and I slept, and I woke up, all right? Then I would immediately, first thing, take pills, because if it's been a while, a lot of times, if you slept and hadn't taken pills, you'd wake up and you could tell the beginnings of those. I'm not going to say they were really withdrawals, but that agitation that you feel when you don't take it, and you could tell it, so you had to take it right away. And so I would start off, first thing I would do would take pills.
And that's how strong the withdrawals are for opiates, correct? That you feel that agitation until you can take another pill.
Yes, that's just, agitation's the tip of the iceberg when
Let's
it
talk about that
comes
just a
to
little bit.
withdrawals, opiate withdrawals.
I think you said in your, what's been played for the jury and the telephone conversation with Special Agent Kelly that, and you talked about withdrawals, just how strong they are, how you're willing to do anything to make them stop, correct?
I think what I said is almost anything.
Almost anything. Well, describe that, please.
You're sick. You're physically, you are physically sick. It's like having the flu when you ache and your joints hurt. You don't want to get up. You can't get up. And that's after a while. It starts with what you're talking about, agitation and, fidgety. Everybody talks about how fidgety I was. But it starts with that, and then it goes to, you might be sitting here and just all of a sudden sweat's running down your face, all over your body. Like you ran a marathon. You literally sweat that much. The next thing that comes on after about, 12 hours is, I call it jumpy legs, but you literally, there's no way that you could sit right here in this chair. You couldn't remain sitting. You would have to get up and move around, and it's like your legs don't want to work. And that lasts for about anywhere from 18 to 24 hours. During that period, the intestinal issues come in, and you can't control yourself. You have diarrhea, like you have food poisoning. You throw up. You're physically sick.
How many times did you try to self-detox?
Mr. Waters, dozens, if not hundreds. It's so many I can't tell you.
And those symptoms you just described are extremely powerful and made it very difficult to do that. Is that correct?
Made it difficult to
try to self-detox.
Oh, it's extremely hard.
You mentioned yesterday that you were paranoid. How long had that been going on?
Well, no, I didn't say that I was paranoid. What I said was, as the addiction evolved, there would be situations where you would have these paranoid thoughts.
And when did those first start?
I can't tell you when they first started, but
I mean, how long before June of 2021?
a long
Week,
time.
a month, a
Oh,
long
no,
time?
no. It was, it was as my addiction got worse. I mean, it was a significant period of time, but,
How long
when-
would you have these paranoid thoughts?
I usually a matter of seconds. I mean, it was something, again, my whole life, you wouldn't see me where I didn't have pills on me. And that's where I kept them. I kept them on me because I was scared to put them somewhere for fear somebody would find them. So I kept them on me. So if you saw me, I had pills on me. I had a pocket full of pills on June the 8th. On June the 8th, when I was sitting in David Owen's patrol car. So I always had them on me, and I might be going to Edisto, and I turn on Hampton Street right out here, and a police car pulls out. Boom, I have paranoid thoughts. It just, but I could always say, you're not doing anything wrong. He's not following you, and I could get past it in a matter of seconds.
Did anybody in your family ever see you having these severe withdrawals?
Absolutely.
And who did?
Mags, Paw, Bus, my dad, Randy, John Marvin. And just to be clear, Randy and John Marvin never saw me having withdrawals before September. They
So
saw
who-
me.
And I thank you for clarifying that. Prior to June of 2021, who in your family saw you having these severe withdrawals?
Bus, Paw, Maggie, my dad.
Do you remember calling Paul a little detective?
I don't know that I ever called him a little detective, but I think Maggie did. I may have. I mean, Paul was very intuitive, so I heard
think you said
Miriam.
that during one of your interviews.
I heard Miriam call him a little detective. I know Maggie used to call him that.
Did that have anything to do with the pills?
Well, yeah, it had something to do with it, but I mean, Paul was always that way, but that what led him to be called a little detective, certainly there were times when Paul found pills.
Including just a month before the murders. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Do you recall 6/5/23 that was entered into evidence, which is a text from Paul to you,
I do.
which he said that Maggie found pills in your bag?
Right.
Tell me about what
But
happened after that.
You asked me about Paul finding them, but it was Maggie that found them.
Fair enough. So it was Maggie that found them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But Paul's the one who reached out to you, correct?
On that occasion, yes, sir.
And what was the discussion after that?
I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was about that I'd had eye surgery I don't know what day it was, but days before that. The day Maggie found them, Maggie drove me to the doctor for me to have my cataract removed, whatever they call that surgery. I can't remember, but I had a cataract taken out, outpatient. You go in for a couple hours and you come out. And it was during COVID, and so Maggie wasn't allowed to come into the doctor's office, and so she sat in the car. And I had left pills in the computer bag, and sitting out there bored, I guess she started looking at my computer and found them in the computer bag. So she found those pills.
All right. And so she obviously told Paul, and Paul texted you, correct? About finding those pills
That's correct.
in May of 2021.
That's correct.
And you've heard your sister-in-law Marion testify that Maggie called him the little detective about the pills. You heard that testimony in this courtroom?
I did hear that.
All right. So did they start to watch you like a hawk and get on you about your pill usage during the month of May?
No.
They did not.
No, Mr. Waters, this battle that I had with addiction, it had been going on for years. And so they had been watching me like a hawk for years before May. May was just one occurrence where I let them down again.
All right. They had been watching you like a hawk for years, is that correct?
About my pill addiction, yes, sir. That is correct.
This time in May, that wasn't the only time that Paul found pills or Maggie found pills, is that correct?
Now, there were a number of times where Mags found pills, Paul found pills, Bus found pills. I mean, it was an ongoing, it was just an ongoing battle for me.
And after they found those pills in May, that being Maggie and Paul, were they trying to get you to self-detox?
No, sir, not at that point in time.
They just let it go?
No, they didn't let it go. But at that point in time, Paul and I had already had a discussion based on, I can't remember exactly when it was, but there'd been a previous occasion a good while back where there'd been a previous occasion where either Maggie or Paul had found pills, and Paul had come to me and asked me, and I told him, you know, I was back on the pills. And
When was this occasion?
we had had a long talk. As I said, I don't remember exactly when it was before that. Paul and I had had a long talk. And we'd agreed, I had agreed, and I detoxed so many times. I'd been to detox. I detoxed at home with Maggie's help. I detoxed at home with doctor's help. I detoxed on my own, tried to, and it just detoxing just didn't work. It just, you could detox, but you couldn't, no, not you, I couldn't stay off of them. And so I promised Paul that as soon as we finished with his criminal case, that I would go to rehab. And and on this particular occasion, Paul knew that his mom worried about me so much with pills that on this particular occasion, I think that Pawpaw convinced Maggie that I got those pills in anticipation of the eye surgery, but that I never took them, so that she would not worry that I was once again.
So you're talking about, now you're claiming that about the time in May, that Paul talked to Maggie and convinced her of that? Or are you talking about a different time?
I'm not claiming that, Mr. Waters. That's a fact. This is what happened.
All right, we're hearing that now, correct?
Hearing what now?
What you just said.
Well, you just asked me this. Mr. Waters, you keep making an issue about first time you hearing these things. When I got arrested and I went to jail, we began reaching out to you to talk to you about all of these things, to try to tell you everything that I'd done, to give you all these details to help y'all go through these financial things. And up until the time that y'all charged me with murdering my wife and child, you would never give Jim Griffin a response to our invitations to sit down and meet with you.
So you're telling me I never responded to Jim Griffin? Is that what you're saying here today?
I'm telling you.
Are you saying that you ever before yesterday reached out to anyone through yourself or through your attorneys and reached out to anyone in law enforcement or the prosecution and told them the story about the kennels? Are you telling me that?
What I'm telling you,
answer my
Mr.
question
Waters,
first, please, sir. Answer my question first. Did you ever reach out to anyone in law enforcement or the prosecution and tell that story that you told this jury yesterday about the kennels before yesterday?
Did I ever reach out to law enforcement to say, I want to tell you about the kennels? No, sir, I did not.
This is the Fifth Amendment line.
Pardon?
This questioning about him volunteering information on these charges violates his Fifth Amendment rights, and we strongly object. Any more, we have to make a motion.
You brought it up.
The objection's overruled.
What I did was,
Answer my question first, sir.
Your Honor, for the record, he did not bring it. He was talking about financial
Sit down,
stuff.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes or no question. Before yesterday, did you ever bring up what you told this jury about that kennels to anybody in the prosecution or anybody in law enforcement?
no, I didn't have the opportunity to, Mr. Waters, because you would not respond to my invitations to reach out and tell you about all the things that I'd done wrong. And to talk about bringing this to a head, to talk about bringing this to closure. I understand how many people I hurt. I understand how angry my partners are and how hurt they are. And I understand how hurt these people that I stole money from are. I understand how hurt they are. And one of the things that I believe is getting past this may help them get some closure. And so since at least January, I've been trying to sit down with y'all to talk to y'all.
Okay.
And never, ever got a response to the multiple requests.
Multiple requests?
Yes, sir, multiple requests. I would ask about this
Murdaugh.
every few
ask
weeks.
this, sir.
Sir?
Did Mark Ball ever hear your story to the jury about the kennels until yesterday? Your buddy and law partner, Mark Ball?
No, sir, I haven't spoken to Mark Ball since I went to rehab.
And these were the same law partners that you were listening to the night of. Is that what you testified to this jury earlier? You testified to that earlier, did you not?
I don't understand your question.
Didn't you testify earlier that you were listening to your law partners on the night of the incident?
Was I listening to them?
Yeah, you testified to that. It's a simple question, sir.
I'm sure I was. When are you talking about?
On June 8th, in the early morning hours, you testified to this jury that you were listening to them, but you never told them the Kendall story either, and they heard it for the first time yesterday as well. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's the first time they heard it.
First time that Ronnie Crosby ever heard that would have been yesterday?
If he was listening, that would have been the first time he heard
First
it.
time Johnny Parker ever heard that was yesterday?
Yes.
First time Danny Henderson, who was representing you in the boat case, ever heard that was yesterday?
Yes, yesterday is the first time that I have said that openly. But that's not what you were asking me, Mr. Waters, but you go ahead,
First time your brother Randy heard that was yesterday.
if he was listening. And Mr. Waters, just to be clear, I was begging for a meeting with y'all to try to bring this to a close, to talk to y'all about everything up until the time that y'all charged me with hurting Maggie and Paul. Now, after that point in time, I stopped, obviously.
You're claiming that you were begging for a meeting, but you admit information was never conveyed that you wanted to change your story after multiple interviews with law enforcement about what happened that night, including the most important fact of all, which is when the last time you supposedly saw your wife and son alive was.
I don't know exactly what was conveyed or not because I wasn't part of it. All I know
Fair
is
enough.
what
You don't
I
know
was
what was
trying to do was to sit down. I understood to bring all this to a close that y'all would want me to sit down and go through all of these financial things, all of these things that I'd done wrong, and to try to bring that to a close, I was repeatedly trying to sit down with y'all.
The reality is, Mr. Murdaugh, is the reason why no one's ever heard that before is because you had to sit in this courtroom and hear your family and your friends, one after the other, come in and testify that you were on that kennel video. So you, like you've done so many times over the course of your life, had to back up and make a new story that kind of fit with the facts that can't be denied. Isn't that true, sir?
No, sir, that's not true.
Okay. You've done that over and over again over the years with all of this that we've been talking about, haven't you?
I've done what over and over again?
The second that you're confronted with facts that you can't deny, you immediately come up with a new lie. Isn't that correct?
Mr. Waters, as we've established, I have lied many times, but I can't sit here and tell you that, what are you talking about, facts that I can't deny? That I would disagree with that proposition that you're putting out, that was what I did all the time. But in doing that, I admit again that I've lied to people that trusted me.
So we can agree that the prosecution and law enforcement and so many of your friends and family heard for the first time your story about the kennels yesterday after all these weeks of testimony. Can we agree on that?
That law enforcement, my partners, and my friends heard me say that for the first time. Yes, I agree with that.
Would you agree with me that your own lawyer was repeating your story that you were at home napping as late as November of 22 on national television?
I don't know.
You don't know that?
Nah, in jail, we don't get newspapers, and the TV we have is limited, so.
So your own lawyers, at least as late as November 22, didn't know this story that you've told to this jury after 5 weeks of your family and friends coming in and saying, yeah, that's him on that video.
I don't know.
Objection, Your Honor, violates attorney-client privilege communications, totally improper. Totally improper.
Yes, sir. Response.
He has brought up his communications with counsel, and now that is fair game, Your Honor. His communications through counsel with, or alleged communications with the prosecution.
He didn't.
There's no attorney-client privilege to national television interviews. The objection is overruled.
Are you waiting for me to answer, Mr. Waters, or did I answer?
I think the point's made.
All right, sir.
You said you were unaware of that national television interview, is that what you said? You were
Unaware of what national television interview?
The one where your lawyer repeated that story as late as November of 2022. Your story that you were actually home asleep at the house.
The
during the
only
8 o'clock hour.
the only national TV ad that I'm aware of is not ad program is one that Mr. Griffin was involved in. Was a are you referring to like a Dateline something?
I'm talking about HBO.
Okay, HBO. All right, like, so, yeah, I am aware of that. And what I believe the case to be is that I believe that when that was in its works, that Mr. Griffin made those statements sometime substantially before November of 22, as early as around the very beginning of 2021.
Well, let's talk.
At least what I understand to be the case.
All right, let's talk some more about your testimony from yesterday. And you're telling this jury, even on something as clear as a skin on video, that your story doesn't change when you have to make them fit the facts that no longer can be denied. Is that what you're telling this jury?
I don't understand that question. Say that again.
I said, you're telling this jury that you don't change your story to make the facts fit evidence you can no longer deny, like what's been going on in this courtroom.
I'm not telling the jury anything about that.
All right, good. All right, let's move on. Let's talk some more about that issue. Let's talk about the confrontation on June the 7th with Jeannie Seckinger, which you said was no big deal. Isn't that what you testified? Words to that effect?
I think what I testified to is that, to me, it certainly didn't seem like a confrontation. Jeannie came to me and was almost apologetic. And this is what I believe, Mr. Waters, is I believe that what Jeannie Seckinger and my partners have had to go through since September has been hard. I know I could see it. I could see the hurt that I caused them. And I know that they're betrayed, and I know that they're angry, and I know that they're hurt. And I want to make clear to this that while I disagree with what Jeannie said as to it being a confrontation, because I don't believe that it was, I don't think that she was lying. I think that she feels it. I think that, she believes that that's the case after all this time that she's had to deal with this. But on June the 7th, when she came to me, she was almost apologetic. You heard her say that she said that she wouldn't be doing her job if she didn't do this. And it was made clear to me that someone had said this, that I had to make sure that income came through the firm, that I couldn't structure money. In other words, I had the impression that there was concern that maybe like Mark Ball and Ronnie Crosby said, that maybe I was hiding fees because of the civil boat case.
Let
But
me see if I
that
can
conversation was so
summarize.
quick, Mr. Waters, that you keep using the term confrontation. I didn't take it as a confrontation.
And you're telling this jury you're not making that issue fit, make your story fit with those facts by saying, it wasn't a big deal, and Jeannie, she's hurt, so she's overreacting now.
No, that's
You
not
got
what
on
I'm
that
saying.
stand and testify.
What I'm saying is exactly what I just testified to, that to me, on that day, that was not a confrontation. It ended almost as quickly as it began, and I didn't think about it again for a period of time until after everything happened.
You testified earlier you get paranoid if a police officer turns out behind you, but you're not getting paranoid when Jeannie comes in here and says, I need an answer about these fees?
No,
Because I believe you took them?
No, things like that wouldn't cause the paranoid thought and the paranoid thinking. It was always related to pills. It was always, okay, that reaction that somebody just gave me.
It was always related to pills.
Do they know something? Did something somebody said? It was. I mean, the times that's what when I had to deal with paranoid thinking, that if a judge confronted me in the courtroom about a piece of evidence, or if Jeannie asked me about that, those are not things that gave me paranoid thinking.
Okay. And you testified the same thing about the boat hearing on June 10th. Not worried about it, no big deal, correct?
No, I didn't say that it was no big deal, but I said that my main concern about those motions coming up on June the 10th dealt more with the venue motion than they did with the motion to compel, I believe is what I
Are
said.
you telling this jury that you didn't testify yesterday, that you weren't concerned about it?
I wasn't overly concerned about it.
Okay.
And I'm sure I had some level of concern because the venue motion was a big issue in the case.
Well, were you concerned enough about it to bow up with Mark Tinsley at the trial lawyers conference and say, what are you doing, Bo?
No, absolutely, unequivocally, never happened.
Okay. If the Ferris fee issue comes to light on June the 7th, you're not going to be able to borrow money from Johnny Parker anymore, are you?
If the Ferris fee, hypothetically speaking, if the Ferris fee came to light on June the 7th, well, here, any point in time, if the Ferris fee came to light, Johnny Parker would not loan me money.
Okay.
If Johnny knew that I had taken fees, I would not have been able to borrow money from Johnny Parker.
You testified earlier about going to the Gamecock baseball game on the weekend prior to Monday, June the 7th, 2021, correct?
Correct.
Hold on for me real quick.
Sir?
All right. I'm going to show you what's been marked as stage 572 to this trial. You got your readers with you, or your glasses. And have you, first I just want you to look through that document and then answer the question, do you generally know what that is?
Waters. Someone wants something, so if you'll stand for a moment, everybody stand for a moment.